Welcome to the Jazz Roundtable, brought to you by Live at 0 BPM, with your host, Grammy Award-winning percussionist and mallet player, Billy Holting. Tonight's guest, Doug Webb. If you care to donate, click on the donate/tip jar link in the description or on our website at live@0bpm.com/tip jar. You can also tip on Venmo at ZEROBPM. And now, let's get to the music with your host, Billy Holting. Hey, everybody out there in internet land. We're back again. Welcome to the Jazz Roundtable. Tonight, I'm really excited. My buddy, Doug Webb, who is seriously one of the best jazz sax players here in Los Angeles, is with us. And we're going to have a pretty casual conversation. We're going to talk about, of course, his origin stories, the state of jazz in Los Angeles, about a new recording out today that we're all very excited about, and more. But let me pull up Doug on the old screen there. Oh, before I do that, so we are 100% tip-based. I'll put some links up in the chat rooms on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. If you want to help us out, that'd be great. And also, if you're there, like and share the video. Even if you are watching an archive, you can like, you can share, you can send in tips and all that stuff. But enough of that. Let's get on to Doug Webb. How are you, Doug?
I'm great.
Hey, so good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and apparently you're a sax player, according to the guy who was just talking.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
sometimes.
We've got one really amazing video that we're going to play a little bit later. But right now, this is Doug Webb. And Doug, let's just jump right into it. How did you get started in music? What drew you in?
My mom was a piano teacher, and she started me on piano lessons. I think I might have been 5 or 4. And then when I was about third grade, I guess, however old that was, I played clarinet for like 3rd, 4th, 5th. And I switched to sax about my sophomore year in high school. And then I was sometime during my junior year that I realized that I didn't want to be a scientist like my father and grandfather, and I thought I'll be a musician. And it wasn't received very well. That the thought of that was kind of like not real popular in my family. But
well, how old were you when you made that decision?
About 15, okay. 16. I guess I was 15, yeah, just before I turned 16.
Yeah. And then, but then you went to college. You went to Berkeley for music.
Yeah. Well, I dropped out of high school my senior year. I mean, I had enough credits to graduate, and I went to Golden West College and Orange Coast College, and I played in a lot of big bands, and there I met, Andy Martin and Ron Stout, and a lot of guys I still play with today.
That's great.
And then I did that for about a year and a half, and then I went to Berkeley in January of '79.
Oh, cool. So you graduated. Well, okay. So, and then now, when you were young, getting into it, were you right into jazz? Were you playing classical clarinet? What were you doing?
I just played clarinet in band. I never was really that good. I never practiced. It was real easy for me, so I never really practiced. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do this music. So then I kind of went about face and started practicing a lot. And I basically just practiced. By that time, I was playing mostly tenor sax, and I started practicing a lot. And then I just, in about 2 years, I went from, like practicing nothing to about 5 hours a day. And then I practiced, like my senior year in high school, I probably practiced about 8 to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
And then I remember the summer after my senior year in high school, I practiced like 14 hours a day until the month of August. And then I practiced 16 hours a day for 31 straight days.
Wow.
And I was like, man, my chops were better then.
Yeah.
I just practiced everything slow, and just, I mean, it was amazing how much better you can get in 3 months.
Wow, yeah, if you're putting in 16 hours a day.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of got to work up to it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's all I ever did.
Now, who were you listening to back then? Who were your influences?
Well, when I was practicing all day long, I was just playing. But I really love Coltrane. Mm-hmm. I was listening to Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. And then, Yes, I thought, oh, wow, Yes, I had Yes, Fragile, it's just vinyl records you have. And then I had one Coltrane record, Alternate Takes on Atlantic. Mm-hmm. Oh. And I remember I would, smoke pot and listen to these, records. And after a while, I would just listen to Coltrane and go, man, there's something about that record that was just, I thought he was just better than all the other saxophone players, like by far. I mean, I kept trying to buy other sax players' records. Like, I bought a bunch of Sonny Rollins and Joe Henderson, just everybody that anybody ever said. I remember buying a Gato Barbieri record and
Wow.
Grover Washington. I mean, they were all had something to offer, but to me, like Coltrane was just the most amazing thing. It was almost like he found something secret to life, or it was just incredible to hear him.
Now, were you transcribing solos? Were you anything?
Yeah, I mean, I spent some time transcribing. Mostly I just practiced and played. And then I would just, and then when I got to Berkeley, all I would do is play with would just jam with guys all day long.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And how long did you go to Berkeley?
I was there 4 years.
Did the 4 years?
I graduated.
And then did you move back to LA right away? Or?
Yeah, I was supposed to go on the road with Buddy Rich, and then Buddy had a heart attack, and so I was didn't know what to do. So I took a gig on a cruise ship, and I did that for 16 weeks. That's the longest I ever did anything for. And I basically, the ship was going to do like 3 more weeks, and then they were going to dry dock in Atlanta and then not pay anybody. So I just said, well, screw this. And so I literally walked off the ship when it came to L.A.
Oh, wow.
And, I told them I was going to do it, but they can't really stop you.
Right.
They weren't even going to give me a plane ticket to come home.
Really?
I would have, done the last 3 weeks. But nope, Anyway, it wasn't the greatest paying gig in the world.
That's crazy. But then you were in L.A. then at that point.
Yeah, I was in L.A. from that point on, and moved back to Orange County, and then I started just going back, playing in big bands, and then I met various people. And
well, I have a list. It's just you're featured on a lot of recordings, and let me just name some of these artists: Horace Silver, Freddie Hubbard, Sal Marquez, Stanley Clarke, Brian Bromberg, Quincy Jones, Matt Marucci, Bobby Caldwell, Kyle Eastwood, and then a lot of pop recordings: Rod Stewart, Carly Simon, Art Garfunkel, Queen Latifah, and Cher. Now, were those just called in for the session, or did you get to tour with anybody? Or
I toured with Rod Stewart a little bit. I was really, in fact, that's how I played with Queen Latifah and Cher, because they did duets with Rod. I don't know who did that. I mean, I remember asking, somebody did a bio for me, and Jimmy Cleveland's wife. One of the first gigs I had was Jimmy Cleveland. I was playing like a jazz quintet or 4-horn band with Jimmy Cleveland, the trombone player. And I remember his wife got a resume for me, and I put some. She said, "Well, who have you played with?" I said, "Well, I played with Herbie Hancock once," and she put down that I played with Herbie Hancock. But Herbie Hancock sat in the gig I was doing, so I never worked with Herbie Hancock. I'm glad that doesn't. But it's funny because sometimes you put something and it just follows you around forever.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I always joke around when somebody comes to sit in with the band. It's like, oh, I'm putting that on the resume.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, well, you're playing in L.A. and you're still pretty young. You're out of college. Are you playing in your own bands, just jamming with whoever? Or are you doing gigs?
I just did every gig I ever got called for.
So you did everything. Casuals,
I did every gig.
Through,
I figure I did 1,000 gigs a year for 30 straight years.
Well, that's a lot.
And I never said no to anything. I figure I have something to learn on any gig I'm doing. And if I absolutely don't have anything else to learn, then, of course, you learn humility. Yeah.
That's great. Now, do you have a favorite gig you ever did, or some notable ones that you liked to talk about?
I got to play with Freddie when he was literally the greatest, among the greatest jazz musicians of all time, playing at his peak, absolute peak. And at that time, I was 27 and 28 years old, and I wasn't really able to enjoy it at the time because I was basically scared to death the whole time. And Freddie didn't make it easy. He didn't try to make you comfortable. He kind of was that old school thing. Like he would ask me if I knew a tune, and I would say yes, and then he would ask me 4 more. And as soon as I said no, that's the tune he would call.
Oh, really?
I mean, really old school. And he would even say, "Okay," he said, I remember this. He goes, "Do you know Body and Soul?" And I go, "Yeah, Fred." He goes, "Do you know Skylark?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you know Portrait of Jenny?" I go, "Yeah, it's like Misty." He goes, "Well, do you know Misty?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you know Here's That Rainy Day?" I go, "Yeah." "Do you do it in G?" He goes, do you know the things we did last summer? I go, oh, no, Freddie, I don't know that tune. So he goes, oh, he didn't say anything. And then we finished the tune up. This was during the piano or the bass solo or something. Of course, it was during the bass solo because that's why we were having a conversation.
Right. But
and then he gets on the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the first week I worked with him at Hilario's in San Diego, and we were there 14 days in a row.
Uh-huh.
He goes, ladies and gentlemen, we'd now like to feature our tenor player, Mr. Spud Webb. Spud Webb at the time was like a 5'2" point guard from the Atlanta Hawks.
Right.
Anyway, he goes, on the things we did last summer. 3, 4.
Wow.
I didn't, and he's looking at me. He goes, play your horn, motherfucker. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. But that's what he said.
That's funny.
And he waited till you'd have to get your own charts. He didn't even have a book.
Wow.
So we were playing pensativa, and I got a B flat chart on the tenor part. There's like a little counter line.
Okay.
And I had the tenor part, and most of the parts I had were in concert because I learned to transpose really early.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have a tenor part on pensativa, and during the rehearsal, he goes, "Man, can you play flute on Up Jump Spring?" And I go, "Yeah, Freddie, but I don't have a flute." He goes, well, can you get it? I lived in Orange County in Huntington Beach. So I literally drove home after the rehearsal from La Jolla to Huntington Beach to get my flute, and the flute's sitting there. We never played Up Jump Spring, but he waited till we started to play Pensativa, which is a hard tune. I mean, I don't care who you are. It's the changes are not easy. And my changes are, everything's transposed to B flat. So, but he waits till I start to play. I play a couple notes. And he goes, flute. And I go, what? And he goes, flute. And I go, what? And he goes, play the flute. And then the same expletive as last time. And I go, oh, okay. So I put the tenor down, pick up the flute. And I'm looking at a A flat major 7, which is now G flat major 7. Mm-hmm. So transposing backwards I don't know how I made it through the solo. But needless to say, I wasn't at my best.
Yeah.
But he was real competitive, and later I talked to him, and it's funny how you use people use don't talk about emotion, and people will meditate before they play and various things, and use various drugs, and illegal performing enhancing substances, I guess is what they call it, and it works for some people on some level until it doesn't, and there's always some, you want to just somehow get some kind of edge into your head. And Freddie would use anger. And he talked about that. He would get pissed off. And so he would find a way to get pissed at somebody. And he played great when he was mad.
Wow.
And I think everybody does. I mean, it's just most of us don't get mad. We spend our whole lives learning to control our anger. But if somebody ever just really pisses you off and then you go to play, you're just like, it really can be a good, drug. Whatever goes off, whatever hormones and endorphins, whatever the combination of things that are happening in your brain when you're angry can be really good for playing music.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great story. Do you have anybody else you have a great story about?
Nope.
That's it. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye. See you later.
No, but how about playing around? I always want to ask somebody, what do you think the state of jazz in L.A. is like these days? What's going on in L.A.?
Oh, I think it's better than ever. There's ever since they moved the Monk School here from New York, and now it's called the Hancock Institute, all these young players are just great. Man, I've been playing with the great sax player David Binney, and we just played last Saturday, and we have a gig coming up November 2nd at the Baked Potato.
Very cool.
And actually, he's getting this band together, but I know the drummer's a guy from New York named Damian Reed, who I've yet to play with, but I understand he's just a great drummer. But he's got 2 young bass players, Logan Kane and Ethan Moffat. They're both incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of young players now are like better than ever. There's young, I think jazz is great. I mean, you don't have these old clubs where people play the same kind of standards that they always did.
Yeah.
Like there's no new Charlie O's or Chadney's, Dante's.
Oh, I miss those places.
Yeah, I miss them too. I mean, there's some things, but I mean, some of those, that's still. I mean, I think Columbo's or whatever still has something like that, like an open mic and.
Well, we have a young sax player that comes on the Thursday night shows named Nick Gomez, who is, to me, it's really refreshing. He plays so well, and he's very mature, and they're all young cats that play in the band. I met him through Michael O'Neill. Kind of, I don't know if he discovered them or whatever, but he comes and plays with these three young guys.
I've never even heard him. I'm sure. I can't wait to get a chance to play with him.
I'll send you a link, and yeah, I think you'd really like the way he plays. It's great. So it is encouraging, because. I always worry sometimes that the jazz musicians are just aging out. What's going to happen?
No,
but it's
I don't.
Nice.
I think it's better than ever. I mean, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, you had guys complaining about like the people that would play out.
Mm-hmm.
Like Connie Condoli said, man, when all these guys that came out like Archie Shepp and Marion Brown, I mean, he thought jazz was over, was dead.
Wow.
And it's funny, but it's hard. It's hard to really, I mean, like I like and respect a lot of people, but it's hard to really listen to somebody that's younger than you and have them become like an influence. It just kind of is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't listen to. I mean, there's probably the sax players that are just a little bit younger than me, like Mark Turner and Chris Potter, and I mean, I really love their playing. I mean, they're really, really good, but I don't think of them. I don't like listen to them or want to transcribe their solos. It just makes me want to listen to the same people that I already listened to, which was the people they listened to.
Right.
So it's kind of funny, but when you establish, for me, once you establish your place in that lineage of saxophone players, and kind of, it has to do with, like when you came up and when you were listening, and then all of a sudden I think, Coltrane changed everything, I don't think there's been a player like that, because, I mean, people like Frank Foster and James Moody went back and then heard this cat Coltrane and then turned around and it completely changed their playing late in life.
Wow.
And I don't think there's been anybody like that. I mean, since Coltrane, I don't think there really has been a sax player that's, that to really change the direction of music.
While we were setting up for tonight, we were talking about innovation, and you had a really great line about it. And do you remember what we were talking about?
Yeah, I just said that some players that are kind of that really. It's almost like they're deficient in some level. Like they don't really understand. It's hard to really understand how to improvise through changes and really how to connect chord changes. And it seems like some players that don't really get that in a traditional way, but then they just practice so much, they become, kind of find their own way of doing things. And so people that find their own way of doing something become innovative. Like, I think like David Sanborn. Somebody told me once that he copied singers. Like he would literally play along with Stevie Wonder and copy all those inflections of his singing, and and other R&B singers. So you can kind of hear that in his playing, but he didn't really have the vocabulary of other jazz musicians. That coming out of Charlie Parker and et cetera, that really that kind of understand resolving seventh chords in a little bit more of a academic way or like a cerebral way. It's more like or mathematical. It's very, very complex, and to really understand how to play changes, you kind of have to use both halves of your brain.
Right.
It's not just play what you hear. It's really a deep understanding of how the chords work and how they sound and how different tensions sound on the different notes sound against the chord. It's pretty complex, and so some people, great players that never get that, and so some of them end up being real great despite of that fact. And in fact, I mean, it's a lot of. I can think of a few players that maybe it doesn't appear to be easy for them. Some things, but yet they're the most innovative. Like players like Sanborn.
Yeah.
And I mean, just great. I mean, there was a time when he was the guy. I mean, if they couldn't get Sanborn, they might call Michael Brecker. But I mean, he was, absolutely the everybody's top player in the world.
That's incredible, and I think of them as such different players.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're both great.
Yeah. Oh, because earlier we were talking about Ernie Watts, who has recorded here before, did one session here, and he just seems so original to me in his sounding.
From spending a lot of time with Ernie, I know that when he plays, when he approaches changes very modally.
Yeah.
So kind of unlike Coltrane, who's more like reharmonizing, and when he plays all that stuff, to him it's chromaticism. And I mean, he literally doesn't think about the, advanced harmonic things that, Michael Brecker but yet, I mean, certainly what he plays is amazing, and he's, he could be technically the best saxophone player. I mean, you can't say anything about his saxophone playing. It's just amazing.
Well, you know what? Maybe would you like to play a tune for us?
You want to play?
Why don't you play one by yourself? Let's do a Doug Webb Extravaganza.
That's funny.
Yeah, the audience here loves it when you play. We're gonna have to get you to do some more of that. But why don't you tell everybody the name of that tune?
Have You Met Miss Jones?
That's right. That's one of my personal favorites. I love that song. Well, that was great, Doug. Well, let's go on. And you were so. Did you do? How much touring have you done? Did you do with people?
Well, I toured with Doc Severinsen.
Oh, pull your mic in so we can hear you.
I toured with Doc Severinsen a lot. But it wasn't a lot. He would do about 10 days twice a year.
Right.
So, but I did that for about 13 years. I toured with Rod Stewart a little bit. I did a bunch of tours with Alphonse Mouzon, just with a trio.
Wow.
With bass and drums, and then I went out with Kyle Eastwood. I went to Europe with Kyle. I toured with Rod Stewart a little bit because I was really involved in his Great American Songbook records.
Yeah.
I did volume 2, 3, and 5.
So was that like a total White Gloves tour compared to the jazz tours, or?
Yeah, you had a really nice tour bus.
I'm sure.
You had your own little booth with a cable.
Wow.
Little TV in there, and the jazz tours was a bus, school bus.
Wow.
You had your own row. You had 2 seats.
Yeah.
And but I mean, trying to sleep on 2 seats, you're basically sitting up.
And that sums the difference between the jazz.
Well, I mean, I toured with Horace Silver when he was, we played a lot of stuff, and it was basically a train tour. A Eurail pass.
And how was it touring with him?
It was great. You realize though, it's a real. There was a little bit of a, with the group I toured with, we weren't. Not everybody was real, bonding. It was real close because you had like a lot of different ages. You had Horace, and it was just a different kind of a crowd. And so, and then there was a couple young guys, and I was 36. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was a couple guys in their 20s that kind of went out, and it was just not a thing where everybody's like really included, and you realize how important that is.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I always made it a point to like touring, and then I toured with Vicky Carr. Just make it a point to. Always on the road, include everybody. Anytime anybody's going to go to dinner, anytime you're doing anything.
That's
and
good.
It really helps. It helps musically to have the band really bond. And
well, there's chemistry in the dressing room. It definitely comes out on stage.
Yeah, I mean, and things can get funny. Like if there's anything, I remember that was somebody wasn't real happy with how much solo space they were getting, and it was just kind of a weird thing. And
yeah. No, I have been on the roads where there were instigators that just tried to churn up, stuff between guys, and there's just no room for that out there.
I don't know why, but it's just you realize how important it is not to have that.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
when you're it's like your family.
Yeah,
and you have to always be that way. And I mean, some of the people I've been on the road with, I mean, we're close to this day. Like I mean, those guys. I have a friend, Tom DeLibero. He's in Vegas. I haven't seen him in 15 years, but we're still,
Yeah.
I mean, if I could, I'd shut up his door right now, and he would like, if I needed to stay there, he'd put me on the couch.
No, that's great.
I mean, it's just
I met my illegitimate twin brother from another mother on the road, and we're still best friends. So I get it.
Is he really?
No, it's just we said we were just so much alike that we came up with that phrase. But it was. It is interesting because
who's that?
His name's Chris.
Somebody I know.
Chris Ishii. He's a keyboard player. Moved to New Mexico years ago, but if you met him, you'd like him. Anyway, it is interesting, and I don't know if people realize it. You're thrust into these situations, especially on a bus tour, where you are literally with each other all the time, and bonds grow really quickly, really fast, and it does certainly help if there's no troublemakers or instigators or. You realize the music isn't that as much isn't as important as you think it is, because the music is. I mean, if you're doing a big tour, you're talking about. I mean, like first of all, if you're doing festivals, you're doing a 45-minute show every 3 days. Right.
That's not a lot of music to play.
Right.
But playing with Horace Silver was great.
That's really cool. Hey, I
remember playing. We did a triple bill with Herbie Hancock. And Bob Dylan and Horace.
Wow.
So Bob plays first. And then he's sitting there, and then Herbie plays. Well, Herbie gets off. We're about to go on, and they're turning the stage over. And the director from the I can't remember what his name is, Bernard or somebody. He comes and goes, "Mr. Hancock, I'm so sorry. Finland does not have any more Dom Perignon." He was in his rider that everything he did. I think he did a solo concert in an auditorium and then he has this quartet that he's playing with, and so every performance in the green room was supposed to be a bottle of either Dom Perignon or Cristal. He goes, "I'm sorry, Mr. Hancock, but you've drank all the Dom Perignon and Cristal that's in Finland." He goes, "But here, please accept this." And they had this Charles Krug vintage, like 1969 Reserve. Wow. that was in a walnut box covered in velvet and. It was probably now it's probably a $10,000 bottle of champagne. But I mean, I'm looking at it and I knew what it was. He goes, "Charles Krug." He goes, "What's this German shit?" I mean, he goes, "Well, technically, I don't have to play."
Wow.
And Bob Dylan goes, "Well," he goes, "That's okay." And then he pulls out the biggest joint I've ever seen. And he goes, "Man, would you like to get stoned?" He turned to me and asked me if I wanted to get high. And I remember, I thought, well, shit, man, Bob Dylan just asked me if I wanted to smoke a joint. I should say yes, but I was about to play, and Horace kind of looked at me like, "You going to get high on my gig?" And so I said no. But I go, "Well, maybe afterwards." But he didn't hang around. So I never got to smoke a joint with Bob Dylan.
It's still a pretty good story.
I thought so.
That's
how
very
many
cool.
cats have been asked to smoke a joint by Bob Dylan?
Yeah, probably a lot, but
Okay, yeah.
but not
How many
not-
jazz musicians?
Yeah, how many people we know?
Yeah.
But hey, I'm going to take a second and just say hello to some people in the chat room. I normally do this a little bit earlier, but of course, Toby is here. We also have Karen is here, and they are writing comments. But since I'm in a conversation, I'm not following them all so much. But I think you were telling this story about Freddie Hubbard, and Karen said, "Yep, that's old school." And Toby has a couple of questions. Did you know? Did you ever play with Tower Power?
No.
You never.
It's funny, but I got a call to do Tower Power that same summer that I went on the road with Horace Silver, and it was funny because it was like almost the same money, and you'd think it would have been more, but of course it's a much bigger band,
Right.
and but who knows, if I'd have taken that gig, maybe I'd still be doing it. And Horace that tour lasted 16 weeks.
Yeah.
That was the last tour Horace ever did, by the way.
Wow. That's kind of cool that you get to be there. And Karen, who also sent the tip in, thank you, Karen, along with Andre, our most consistent fan. He's a guitar player here in town. But Karen says, Doug, you're such a wealth of experience. And the audience agrees. This is really great. And you're a very easy interview. Boy, some people I have to drag it out of them, but you're actually really fun. But I am going to take another second here. This is kind of my ad for what's coming up on Live at 0 BPM. So if you will just give me a minute here, I'm going to tell you what's happening. So this Thursday, we have Brad Rebuchin Trio, and that's with Ahmet Turkmenoglu and Chris Blondell on drums. And then Dave Tull is coming in. Dave Tull is a drummer in town. He's done a ton of tours, Streisand, Michael Franks, and stuff like that. But he is also, I'm going to say it, probably one of the best scat singers in Los Angeles. He's amazing. He's got a couple of albums out that are hysterical. They're kind of along the lines of Dave Frischberg. Very, very clever lyrics.
And I'm on them.
And you're on them. And I'm on one of them as well. But Dave has an album. The new one is out called Texting and Driving, and he has one called I Just Want to Get Paid, which is great. And then the next Jazz Roundtable, which is on the 2nd of November, is Bass Night. And we're going to have Ken Wilde and Kevin Axt, and I'm working on a third guy. They're going to be in studio. I keep teasing them. They're going to play Ray Brown solos in 3-part harmony, but they said no. And then we're skipping that Thursday because the Saturday night I'm playing a trio with Larry Steen and Chris Wabich. It's going to be a backyard concert. If you're on our mailing list, you'll get first chance if you're in LA to come see that. We're holding it down to 40 spots, but we're also going to live stream that Saturday, and that one is 6 to 8 instead of just 7 to 8. And then Herman Matthews is coming in. Herman is an amazing drummer who did play with Tower Power, since we're talking about them. And he's got a band called Chewin' to Fat, which is guitar, bass, drums, keys, and 3 horns. Yeah, we're going to get 7 guys in that little room where Doug is, and we're going to have a party time with that. And then still filling in some nights for November, December, but on the 16th, the last live show of the year will be the Holiday Jazz Show, and that's going to be a guitar duo with Brad Rebuchin and Jeff Miley. If you saw the Jazz Roundtable on the history of the jazz guitar, part 2, it was just the 2 of them, and they did a bunch of duets, and they liked it so much they wanted to come back and do this. So that'll be fun, and that's enough of that. Let's get back to Doug here. Hey, Doug.
Hey.
Do you want to? Yeah, I know we're going to do something special playing later, but do you want to play another tune for us really quick?
No.
Ed, you really?
Why don't you play that thing that you...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hey, well, set this up. Tell everybody what this is.
Well, during the pandemic when nobody could play with anybody, I had this idea of... I said, why don't you write... I'm friends and I played with Ladd McIntosh, and I have a lot of weird instruments. Like saxophones, there isn't a woodwind that I don't have almost. I have all the Renaissance, the Moak historical. If you Google that, all the Baroque instruments, crumhorns, cornemusens, Kortholz, these things with double reeds. Let's see what else. Sardunes. I have literally tons of those, and then also Mizmars and the Egyptian woodwinds, Indian Nagasvaram.
How many instruments how many parts are there on this piece?
On this one's about, 50.
Okay.
But I did another one that's coming out. We did like 166.
Now,
but if I have to look at how many different instruments I have, it's probably about 1,000.
Wow, that's amazing. But now, this was not originally written for woodwinds. It was something else, wasn't it?
Well, no, Ladd arranged this.
Oh, he did. Okay.
For all the parts that you see. I changed a couple things.
Okay.
He had written the Saxophone parts a little too high, like a little out of their range, because nobody writes for Saxophones.
Yeah.
But on this, I play soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, bass, contrabass, and then a C sub contrabass or a C contrabass, whatever you want to call it.
Cool.
That was and since then I've gotten some more Saxophones from a guy in France that they're better Saxophones. But they're really cool. I just like them. They're basically like a metal oboe that with saxophone fingering. So I mean, since I play saxophone, I can play these.
Oh, very cool. But is it the double reed?
Yeah, they have a double reed.
Okay.
It sounds like a cross between a saxophone and a duck.
Okay. Cool. I'm just going to play a couple of minutes of this, but in the show notes for this, I will put the link up to Lad's thing, and then when you do more of these, we'll put them out in the newsletter that gets out there. So if you're watching this, please like and thumbs up or follow and whatever the videos, that helps us rise these videos to the top, because we're just a small little jazz broadcast, and we can use all the help we can get. So, but here, this is called Jalistico. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, it's Lad's original composition.
I'm going to play a couple of minutes of this, and here you go.
I guess just couldn't find a good place to stop.
That's exactly. Oh, let me get your mic on again. I was thinking, I'll just wait till this solo's over. I just had to play the whole thing, and I put the links up in the chat rooms just so you can find them if you want to check that out. But save it for later. You know, we got a few minutes left here, but I am going to go back and read a couple of comments because there's some new people here. Susan is here, who's a flute player that I know you know, Doug. She says, "So great to see Doug do his thing." She's watching from Hollywood. Hillary's watching.
Sue Winsberg?
Yeah.
Oh, tell her.
Well, you tell her.
Hi, Sue.
She said she hasn't been able to see the show before, but I'm glad she showed up. And a good buddy of mine, I have not talked to in a while, talking about friends you make on the road. Curtis is out there watching from Inglewood. He gives the big thumbs up. He's having a good time. Ed had some he's watching from San Diego, and he said 50 woodwinds never sounded better, and beautiful harmony. And this was Lad McIntosh. Now, Lad almost did the big band composer night we did several months ago, but he wasn't available that night. I definitely want to have him on because he's definitely a creative cat doing a lot of cool stuff.
He's a wonderful musician. Or orchestrates for all the great film composers.
Yeah, and his big band stuff was one of the
Actually,
first.
he makes those film composers great.
Yeah, he'd really, and his own creative thing with his big band was always just very unique. And let me see, I don't want to miss anybody. Toby's watching from Encino. Let's see, Terry is waiting for you to do a gig down in OC. You got anything coming up down there?
November 11th.
At?
The Drake.
The Drake. Okay,
in
Terry.
Laguna Beach.
Karen, who said, let's see, Karen, she's watching from Nashville, and she says grand, and then she just said wow, which is great. And let's see, I don't want to miss any of these comments. We have some good ones, and I do want to mention that Andre and Karen have sent tips in, so thank you to you too. Anybody else? Oh, and look, Susan just sent one in also. Thank you. Every little bit helps. No amount is too small. No amount is too large. Just so you know. Anyway, but I wanted to talk about, you have several albums out under your name as a leader.
Yeah, about 20.
About 20. So, and you are, I have a couple of them. I downloaded on Apple Music, and you've got them all. You've got a newest one out last year, 2020. Can you tell us about that? Who's on it? And
that's a trio with Andy Sinesi and Brian Charette on B3 organ.
Wow.
And then we did one on 2020. Actually, I did a three horns, myself, and it's like 3 saxophones. And it's kind of a strange combination, but I think it worked. And see, I did some, just 3 horn. It's a 3-horn thing for another one for Positone. But this one's with Bob Reynolds, myself, and Greg Osby, alto player who was in town from New York. And
that's not the Triple Play album, is it?
That was one of the most successful ones I did with them.
I love that album.
That one is with me and 2. It was supposed to be Ralph Bowen and Walt Weiskopf. Ralph ended up having to not be able to do the gig, so we got Brian. Who's the other? Anyway, he couldn't do it, so they got Joel Fromm. It's amazing how Joel is a good friend of mine, and I actually said, well, man, let's get Joel. But he's not on Positone label. That's why they wanted Ralph. But Joel just did an amazing saxophone player. Lives in, actually, I think he moved. I think he might have moved, with the pandemic, a lot of people have moved out of New York. It hit there harder than here. Yeah,
Definitely, especially at the beginning of that. So the newest album, and you said you've got 2 more in the can. Who's on those albums?
Well, then I have my fusion band. We just recorded. My fusion band is with a drummer named Danny Carey, who plays with the rock band Tool. And we've been playing now for over 10 years.
Really?
And it's really just a band for the baked potato. But we've been doing it like once a month for 10 years now.
Wow.
And now it's so successful that we sell out. We do 2 nights in a row.
Wow.
We're coming up, I think, and we have to look at the Baked Potato website. We have 2 gigs in November, 2 gigs in December. And then I'm also there November 2nd with Dave Binney. But I think we're there. I think it's something like the 14th, 15th, or the 15th, 16th, something like that of November. But anyway, the band is with Jamie Kime, who I know you know from Zappa, plays Zappa. Jimmy Earl who plays bass from the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and I've known him for years. When I first met him, we were both playing in Stanley Clark's group, and he was the second bassist. and Mitch Foreman and myself and Danny.
That's great. No, it's interesting.
And I have to tell you though, it's because of Danny's in the band that we're so popular.
Right. Well, he's very, very, very well known. But it's a cool band. It's
Yeah,
funny.
It's a fun band, and
there's a bar down near the beach that I go to occasionally. I was talking to one of the bartenders. I don't know how it came up, but mentioned the baked potato, and the first thing he says is, "I love the Doug Webb All Stars with Jamie Kime." And I thought, well, I know those guys. So
okay,
anyway,
that's
so,
so nice. Yeah.
You've got
No, I mean we're hugely popular. I mean now like every single tickets left over at the end sell out. The patio seats sell out.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
no
great.
matter what the price, they put $50 at ticket and they sell out.
Wow.
Both sets. And I feel
That's great.
people want me to get them in. I can't even get it. I can't even have any guest list or I have to tell them like in a month ahead of time. Hey, look, we got guests, so don't sell the tickets. Like
Right.
as many tickets as they'll put up, they'll sell.
Well, that's
Which
awesome.
is great because as a jazz musician, I've never had any kind of success whatsoever. I mean, I haven't even been able to get people to come out when it's free. My whole life, I put a great band together. I remember having, I remember having Billy Higgins and Art Davis and Horace Tapscott, and we're playing somewhere and it's free, and you can't even get people to come out.
It's tough out there, but that's
some people come, of course. But
so. When is that album being released?
I don't know.
So you still,
We might do it ourselves, which case I'm just horrible at getting that done.
Right.
I have a label that wants it, but they don't really want to pay for it.
Ah.
So, and Danny said, well, he can get like Tool kind of has their own label. So we just have to figure out how we're going to. I think we're going to release it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've never done that before, and it's like every day I have 100 other things to do.
I get it.
And yeah, but it's recorded. It's finished. It's Danny's having somebody master it.
Oh, good.
The same guy that mastered Tool's records.
Wow. Very cool.
I think it's a good record though.
And then what's the other album out?
The other one is the one I did. It's like Triple Play 2.
Okay.
The one I said with Bob Reynolds, and that's coming out on Positone, and it's coming out in January on Positone. They were going to release it in October, but by the time that it gets any radio play, it's almost time for Christmas music.
Right.
Because it takes about 4 weeks to get in heavy rotation, 5-6 weeks. So by the time Thanksgiving hits, they weren't going to release it till the end of October, and I just said, no, let's wait till January. Because the last two they released that time of year never made it to the top of the Jazz Week.
Ah, right.
And the ones I did that were released in January through March, I had one that was like number 4, which was, even, for a week anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But and they've all been top 10. Most of them were top 10. But the last one I did, this last one I did, because it was released in the end of October,
Yeah.
it just never did anything. And by January, it's like an old record.
Right.
And so, and that's really the first you can really seriously have the label can really seriously try to do any serious like radio promotion.
Mm-hmm. I get it. But that's cool. We look for it. And when they're out, let me know. I'll put it in the newsletter so people can find it. We already have some people here. So Ed said he can't wait for Triple Play 2 and the Web All Stars. And Curtis says that's a good problem to have. Those problems. But Susan says she'll be there on the 2nd. So, but what we're getting kind of close to the end. I feel like we could sit here all night. So when I do Sax Night 2, because you had a gig, you were doing the grand reopening of the Baked Potato on when we did Sax Night 1. That was the first show that they did when they were open again. I think it was you guys.
Oh yeah,
several months ago. But we do that too. We'll have to have you back on.
It was the second, whatever.
Yeah. But right now, do you want to play something? You want to do?
Well,
a thing?
I'm with you.
Okay. So this is not anything I planned. Doug said, "Hey, let's play something together," and I never get to play on this show. So I thought, "Hey, what the heck? Let me see if I can find that camera. There it is." So I'm going to go into the studio now. We think it's balanced. We have nobody in here controlling it, so we're just going to hope for the best. And I do have to turn off our vocal mics, otherwise the room sound gets a little weird.
Unplug this one.
Yeah, just unplug that one. I'll mute mine, and we're going to go play a tune for you, and then we'll be back and we'll say our farewells. But thank you everybody out there who's been in the chat rooms. It's been a really fun night, and thank you for those people that tipped. If you're watching an archive, you can still tip. Every little bit helps put the show on. Goes to the artist you see. And but here we're going to go play a tune. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to turn this mic off. can't tell if what the sound levels are like, even when I'm talking. But hi, everybody. So we're going to play a tune. We're going to do what I think we do?
Yep.
Okay. You guys will know this one.
Yep. Okay, no applause on this one.
I'll go in there. We'll have a little bit of delay.
Hi, everybody.
There we go. Now we're back. Oh, wait. And here's the audience. Yes. Thank you out there. So we had to do, that was so much fun, Doug. Thank you.
It was fun.
That was nice to, man, it's just the way you turn the phrase and push and pull the changes. I don't know how to describe it, but it was just something really cool and very special about that. So, but I think we're going to kind of wrap it up unless there's something else you want to talk about. Or should we save it for the next show?
Just jazz is in a good place right now. Everything, positive outlook on the world and life. And if you want to be happy, remember, be grateful.
That's a great point. I love everybody that's come on has had some great simple thing to say at the end of it, and that's a really good way to end it. So I'm just going to say thank you for everybody here. I'm going to play the outro. Oh, Curtis Robertson sent a tip in. Thank you, Curtis, my brother Curtis. And everybody's saying thank you. We'll see you guys soon. This Thursday, 2 nights from now, we've got another live jazz show the trio, and I'm going to play the outro. And thanks again, everybody. Where is the magic button there? Good night.
Thanks for joining us at Live at 0 BPM. These videos will be archived on YouTube and Facebook, so tell your friends. These Jazz Roundtable shows will also be released as a podcast, so please subscribe. Coming up on Thursday, October 21st, it's the Brad Rebution Trio featuring Brad Rebution, Ahmet Turkmenoglu, and Chris Blondell. Showtime, 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific. And as always, it's free, though donations are very free. Go to live@0bpm.com for details and to sign up for our mailing list. Also, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. See you soon.